Most people assume your birth month is a party on a calendar and nothing more. A date, a cake, a few candles, the end. But what if the month you arrived on Earth quietly shaped the rhythm of your attention? The way your energy rises and falls, the kinds of stories you trust, and even the conflicts you seem to meet again and again. Not as fate, not as superstition, but as a kind of seasonal fingerprint stamped into your nervous system when you first opened your eyes to the light. Tonight I want to test a daring idea. That your birth month carries a psychological climate, and that recognizing it, without worshiping it, can help you understand why certain rooms feel like home, and certain choices feel like betrayal. Stay with me. By the end of this episode, you'll know how to listen to the season you were born into, how to translate Jung's language of archetypes into something you can use tomorrow morning, and how to avoid the trap of turning a poetic truth into a prison. Here's the short version before we wander deeper. You are not your birthday, but your body and psyche are not blank slates either. We are creatures of daylight and darkness, warmth and cold, beginnings and endings. Your first weeks in this world taught your brain what normal feels like, what mornings look like, what colors dominate the sky, what foods and rituals people reach for, how often they gather, whether the outside air stings or sings. Jung called archetypes the living patterns underneath our behaviors. The mother, the trickster, the hero, the sage. Seasons are archetypes too. The month you were born is a doorway into the flavor of beginnings your life encountered. A winter entry is not the same as a high summer arrival. We'll explore how those first impressions can echo through your preferences, your threshold for risk, your way of loving and working. If you're new here, welcome to Deep Psyche Lab. We explore the soul of everyday life, calm, intimate, and honestly curious. If that's your language, subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab and tap the bell so you don't miss the next conversation. If you're already part of this circle, I'm genuinely glad you're here. As we move, hit like if you feel a spark and tell me in the comments, I honor the season I was born. It helps the channel and it helps the other minds who find us because of you. Let me set our compass. When Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, he meant the shared bedrock of images and instincts we're all born with. Think of it as a mythic reservoir, patterns that want to express themselves in our particular lives. An archetype isn't a puppet master, it's a melody that invites you to improvise. Now place this idea next to the reality of seasons. The natural world plays 4 big chords: emergence, flourishing, harvest, and rest. Where you're born on that wheel gives you your first soundtrack. Infants learn the basic rhythm of safety through repetition, the timing of feedings, the length of daylight, the way caretakers schedule their lives. A newborn in deep winter meets a world of enclosure and hush. A newborn in midsummer meets a world of open windows and late light. These aren't small atmospheric details. They are the earliest negotiations your body makes with reality, and they can leave psychological imprints, tendencies, not laws. When I speak of birth months, I'm not reciting astrology. I'm speaking about the meeting between biology and culture that occurs at the level of weather and ritual. The quality of light changes the tone of a room. The way a city behaves in January is not how it behaves in May. Families act differently across the calendar. In some months they gather often, in others they retreat and save. We absorb all of it, long before we have words. Jung would call this the ground of experience on which our personal myth grows. You have a myth even if you hate the word. It's the story your life keeps telling, through your choices, your relationships, your failures, your sudden courage. Think of your birth month as the mythic climate of your first chapter. Let's make this practical. Think for a moment about the month you came into the world. What did the outside air feel like for the adults who welcomed you? Were they lighting candles at 4 in the afternoon because the sun disappeared early? Were they eating raw tomatoes that tasted like the color red itself? Were they cleaning up pine needles and singing hymns? Or opening windows and letting thunderheads roll over a porch? We'll walk through the wheel in a minute, but first, an anchor from Jung. He introduced the idea of individuation, the lifelong task of becoming who you are while staying human with others. Individual but not isolated. Archetypes matter because they show us the forces at play inside that task. If you were born into a season of retreat, your myth may center on the question of when to step forward. If you were born into a season of abundance, your myth may center on the question of when to refuse more and choose depth. Winter births first. If you came in when the world was quiet, when the trees looked like disciplined drawings of themselves, You might carry an early understanding that life begins in secrecy. Winter is the season of roots and rehearsal. In many places, neighbors vanish behind doors and families close ranks. It is a time of ritual concentration. Holidays that remember light by kindling small flames. Songs that look backward as much as forward. The newborn meets a world of breath-clouded air, shorter days, and caretakers who plan. Psychologically, this can seed a comfort with interiority. It doesn't doom you to shyness or make you a contemplative by decree, but it may leave you a signature. You recharge in quiet. You suspect that beginnings don't need applause to be authentic. You are patient with gestation, with difficult learning, with slow mastery. The shadow of a winter birth. Shadow in Jung's sense, meaning what we don't own yet, can be a guardedness that mistakes safety for meaning, or a habit of waiting so long to share that the moment for communion passes. To grow, winter children learn to risk visibility without equating it with vanity. They learn to trust that showing what they've been incubating doesn't betray the sanctity of the work. Spring births arrive as the ground loosens and water moves where it was frozen. The world simplifies into verbs: sprout, hatch, migrate, melt. Humans mirror this. People open calendars again. Markets brighten. Projects that seemed impossible in January feel obvious. The newborn meets an atmosphere of restart. Psychologically, this can become a lifelong rapport with beginnings beyond beginnings. Spring children are good at resurrection. They can revive dropped ideas and breathe play into stale rooms. They sense possibility like a scent carried on the wind. The shadow possibility is restlessness disguised as creativity, an addiction to novelty that prevents deepening. To grow, spring children practice staying with a practice after the first shine has rubbed off, learning that rebirth doesn't always mean changing the project. Sometimes it means changing how you meet it. Summer births arrive when the world is generous without asking permission. The daylight lingers as if it loves you. Humans throw open doors and decide that the living room includes the grass. The newborn meets a reality where warmth is ambient and the rules seem bendable because the sun refuses to leave. Psychologically, summer children can carry an imprint of permission. They intuit that there is room to expand, to perform, to gather people and make noise without fear. They learn early that the world can be a friend. This can mature into boldness, charisma, the talent for celebration and hospitality. The shadow can be the assumption that energy is inexhaustible, that relationships should always be easy, or that intensity equals intimacy. To grow, summer children learn the art of limits, how to say no without losing heat, how to end the party when it's time to rest, how to let quieter people speak without mistaking quiet for absence. Autumn births come when the angle of light turns golden and the body remembers that time is passing. It's the season of harvest and accountability. We count what grew. We store what we can. We admit what failed. The newborn meets a reality of evaluation and transition. First days of school, first cold fronts, first sweaters pulled from cedar smell. Psychologically, this can plant a deep respect for consequence and craft. Autumn children often care about finishing, about making sure that what was started becomes something worth sharing. They have a gift for editing, lives and sentences. They can prune without malice. The shadow can be premature closure, the habit of ending too soon to avoid the risk of late failure, or a tightness that confuses excellence with perfection. To grow, autumn children practice spaciousness. Let a little mess live. Let an imperfect harvest teach rather than shame. Already you can feel a pattern. None of this is destiny. All of it is invitation. But seasons don't mean the same thing everywhere. If you were born near the equator where the year divides less dramatically, your birth month signature might be tied more to rains and winds than to temperature. If you were born in the southern hemisphere, flip the calendar archetypes. A January arrival might carry the warmth of the summer imprint, not winter's hush. If your family kept a different ritual calendar, religious feasts, agricultural cycles, migration patterns, your birth month lives inside those meanings too. Jung would tell us to notice all of these contextual layers because archetypes don't float above culture. They incarnate through it. What matters is not the word June, but the lived climate of your first chapter. There's another angle worth naming. Your first weeks etched a rhythm into the adults around you. If you were born when people were together, vacations, school breaks, long evenings, They might have held you in a field of collective attention. If you were born when life was compressed, tax season, deadlines, storms, they might have held you inside a field of focused, anxious, or industrious energy. Babies don't only absorb light, they absorb mood. Later in life, you may repeat that mood to feel like you're in the right story. That's how the unconscious works. It repeats until we recognize, and then it offers us a choice. Individuation is accepting the imprint while learning to play in a larger key. Let's translate this into relationships. Winter and summer often fall in love because they admire each other's gifts. Winter brings depth and attention. Summer brings warmth and outreach. Together they can build a home that holds both sanctuary and celebration. The friction comes when winter wants to protect a secret until it's ready, and summer wants to share it while it's alive. Spring and autumn are attracted for similar reasons. Spring ignites, autumn refines. They can create extraordinary work together. One opens the door, and the other names the craft. Their friction arrives when spring resists pruning and autumn worries that exuberance will waste a precious harvest. If you hear yourself in any of this, good. Not to stereotype your relationships, but to give you language for negotiations you're already making. Careers echo these rhythms too. Winter births may feel at home in research, therapy, writing, coding, or any craft that rewards deep solitude before public release. Spring births may thrive in startups, teaching, product launches, and roles that require evangelizing a fresh idea. Summer births often find themselves in leadership, community building, sales, performance, or the kinds of strategy that depend on momentum and morale. Autumn births may excel in editing, law, finance, project management, or the stewardship phases of an organization when precision matters. You're not limited by your season, you're resourced by it. If your job asks for the opposite energy, you can borrow from other months on purpose. That's one of the most useful frames to carry out of this episode. The seasonal wheel lives inside you. You can rotate it consciously. Jung used the word synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences, events that feel connected by significance rather than by cause. Consider it here. Notice the strange, quietly convincing moments when your life lines up with your birth month's themes. Maybe every year around your birthday you accidentally begin again. A new city, a new practice, a new relationship with your own body. Maybe you always risk too much only to discover that risk is how you become honest. These recurrences aren't punishment. They are invitations to see the pattern and collaborate with it. When Jung asked us to respect synchronicity, he wasn't telling us to surrender agency. He was pointing at the dialogue between life and psyche. You co-author the message when you respond to it with awareness. Let me take you into a simple exercise you can try tonight. And if you do it, tell me in the comments, "I honor the season I was born," and share what you discovered. Find a piece of paper, write your birth month at the top. Without thinking too hard, write 5 words that describe that month's weather, light, rituals, and moods from your childhood home. Now write 3 moments in your life when you began something important. What month were they? What quality of attention did you bring to those beginnings? Careful, explosive, social, meticulous. Then write 3 moments when you finished something important. A degree, a project, a relationship. What month were they? How did you end? Decisively, reluctantly, ceremonially, quietly. Finally, look for the rhyme. Do your beginnings tend to carry the season of your birth month or its opposite? Do your endings cluster around a certain time of year? Don't force a pattern. Let it appear if it wants to. If you see nothing, that's information too. Not all truths need to rhyme to be true. But if you do see a pattern, ask a generous question. How can I work with this rhythm rather than against it? A word about identity. It's tempting to hear what I'm saying as a new way to label yourself. That's not the project. Labels soothe the anxious part of us that wants a short answer to a big question. Labels also get stale. Jung would rather you let the pattern surprise you than confine you. Think of your birth month as an origin story, not a life sentence. Origins explain a lot, but they are chapter 1. Individuation is what you do with the first chapter. Which characters you add, which values you elevate, which conflicts you learn to resolve without repeating. You are allowed to mature beyond your season's default. I want to speak to the skeptics for a moment because you might be listening with crossed arms and an eyebrow up, and I respect that posture. You could argue that this is classic human pattern seeking, a way to turn coincidence into meaning. That's not wrong, but we are meaning-making animals. And the question is not whether we'll make meaning, but whether we'll do it consciously. If a seasonal lens helps you see your habits with tenderness instead of self-contempt, if it helps you time your efforts better, if it helps you forgive your rhythms and stretch them on purpose, that's useful. If it becomes an excuse for refusing growth, throw it out. Mature spirituality and mature psychology share this rule. A myth is true to the extent that it makes you more responsible, more loving, more free. Let's move from theory to today. Suppose you were born in a month of darkness. You might notice that your motivation dips when the world gets loud and social. Instead of shaming yourself, plan your big pushes for late winter and early spring, when your interior muscles are strongest. Give yourself more tiny sanctuaries during summer, 10-minute pockets of quiet inside the noise. Suppose you were born in a month of festivals and open doors. You might notice that you overcommit because you love momentum and people. Use that gift in seasons of launch, but protect an autumn ritual of editing. Once a year, sit with your calendar and ask, what am I keeping because it flatters me rather than grows me? Suppose you were born where seasons blur. Your month might carry meanings tied to water and wind rather than heat and cold. Honor those dialogues. Watch how your clarity rises with the rains or how your urgency peaks when the winds return. Map your energy like a coastline, not like a clock. Jung's anima and animus, his language for the contrasexual energies within us, offer another layer here. Imagine that the season of your birth gives a tone to which inner figure takes the first solo. A winter birth might invite the reflective, moonlit voice early. A summer birth might invite the solar, outward voice. Individuation asks you to integrate both, the receptive and the active, the contemplative and the assertive, so that no single season owns you. If you notice your life tilting too far toward one pole, always inward, always outward, borrow the counter season on purpose. A winter-leaning person can schedule summer behaviors, throw a dinner, risk a performance, say yes to a visible role. A summer-leaning person can practice winter behaviors, close the door, study a craft quietly for 2 hours, withhold an announcement until the work is real. When you do this, you're not betraying your nature, you're expanding it. There's a gentler piece of this puzzle I don't want to skip. Birth is not only a date and a sky, it's a household. The month you arrived might have been a time of grief or celebration, scarcity or abundance, war or peace. Those contexts matter. If the whole community was relieved in your birth month because a season had finally changed, you may carry a gift for bringing relief to others. If the community braced for a hard stretch every year, you may carry vigilance and a talent for preparation. Honor these gifts without making them definitions. Jung encouraged us to treat our complexes, clusters of feeling and memory that grab us, as teachers. If your birth month activates a complex in you around holidays, school, travel, or family, meet it with curiosity rather than contempt. Ask what it is trying to protect. Ask what it wants you to know. I'll give you a personal image to hold. Imagine the year as a clock laid on the ground and your birth month as the point where you entered the circle. You stand there now, hand on the gate. When you look across the circle, you see the month opposite yours, the counter season. That opposite often holds medicine for you. Winter's opposite is summer. Spring's opposite is autumn. If you lean heavy into your birth imprint, deliberately visit the month across the circle in how you schedule your life. Winter children, plan a summer ritual where you are intentionally less guarded. Summer children, plan a winter retreat where you are intentionally less available. Spring children, schedule an autumn edit day. Autumn children, give yourself a spring day where you begin something without permission or proof. This is not about balancing for balance's sake. It's about practicing the whole wheel so that your life can move. You might wonder where fate ends and freedom begins. Jung would answer, freedom begins wherever you become conscious. That's why we're talking about birth months at all. Not to re-enchant a calendar, but to grow your freedom. When you name the climate that raised your first breath, you give yourself choices that your default settings hide. You can stop resenting your rhythms as if they were failures. You can stop forcing yourself into energies that make you brittle. You can stop envying other people's seasons and start designing with your own. If you want a tiny daily practice, try this for a week. Each morning ask, what is today's season in me? Don't consult the weather app. Consult your body. Are you winter quiet or summer bright, spring curious or autumn serious? Then choose one action that collaborates with that inner season. If you're winter quiet, do the deep work first and let the meetings come later. If you're summer bright, Make the call you're avoiding while the glow is with you. If you're spring curious, sketch the wild idea before you let feedback tame it. If you're autumn serious, close a loop you've left open. This is seasonal intelligence, emotional weather, working with you instead of against you. Now return to your birth month once more. Remember what celebrations happen around then, what flavors, what colors, what songs. When Jung spoke of symbols, he said they are the best possible expressions for something unknown. Your month is a symbol. It points to the quality of beginning you carry. If you want to honor it, craft a birthday ritual that doesn't just count another year, but reminds you of your origin's gift and shadow. A winter ritual might include silence and a vow to show one thing you've been hiding. A spring ritual might include planting, literal or metaphorical, and a vow to stay with it past the first thrill. A summer ritual might include gathering your people and a vow to rest even as you host. An autumn ritual might include writing thank you notes to your past selves and a vow to let one imperfect thing live. Make it humble and honest. Rituals are containers for memory. They help your future self remember who you meant to be. If you're still with me, take a breath and notice what line in this episode tugged at you. That tug is your psyche saying that yes, there. Before we close, say it out loud in your own words. If you feel moved, write it below along with the phrase, "I honor the season I was born." It creates a field of recognition in these comments. And if this conversation has been helpful, click like so others can find it, and subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab for more deep mind stories and knowledge. We're building a quiet corner of the internet where depth meets everyday life. You're invited. I promised a warning about traps. The biggest trap is turning this into status. I'm a spring person, we might say, like a badge. The psyche doesn't care about our slogans. It cares about relationship, with time, with others, with our work, with the more than human world. The second trap is fatalism. I was born in winter, so I'll always be afraid of the sun. No, individuation means you can learn any season. The third trap is contempt for difference. Someone else's season threatens our certainty, so we mock or dismiss. But civilization itself is a conversation between seasons. We need designers of beginnings and guardians of endings, generators of warmth and holders of silence. The healthiest communities welcome each season to the table. Let me end where we began, with a claim and a question. The claim: your birth month is a subtle teacher. It whispers about the tempo that feels like home and the tasks that grow you. The question: will you listen without kneeling? Respect the imprint, without making it your master. That is Jung's way. He invited us to treat myths not as cages but as corridors. Walk them long enough and they open to sky. If today's conversation lit something in you, press like and let the algorithm know it. Subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab and turn on notifications so you don't miss when we explore the next archetypal pattern hiding in plain sight. In the comments, write, "I honor the season I was born," and share one insight about how your month shows up in your life right now. This channel is educational and not a substitute for therapy. Thank you for giving your attention to something slow. Until next time, take care of your inner weather and let it teach you how to live.